In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
I gotta tell you, I'm in the lead up to doing this episode.
Silence in my courtroom. Silence.
Have we already called court to order? I was going to say,
yeah, court order.
Imagine
in the court.
I'm in the hallway, bro.
Order in the court. Order in the. Do you want to be in contempt of court, sir?
What's the worst thing that's going to happen to me? I'm going to have to go away and watch my movie again.
No, there is.
That would be the worst punishment we would come up with.
Dogs,
no!
And we have bees, and we have dogs with bees in their mouths.
Not the bees. The dogs I'm cool with. Bees, not so much. Nah, I like dogs.
I don't appreciate this lack of focus. Order in this courtroom. We're gonna do a coin flip.
He's drunk, but power.
To see which side will make their opening statements first. So, pick a number between 1 and 2, Kelly.
2.
Oh, look at that! You lost. Prosecution.
Yes.
Please proceed with your opening arguments.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to...
This is the case of... I'm sorry. This is the case of the people versus Ladyhawke. Please continue.
And for the record, this is still Screen Share and Chill, and I'm Kelly.
Oh, I'm Judge Keith.
I'm sorry. I thought this was my time, Judge.
We will run the clock back and allow the prosecution.
Wait, there's a clock?
There's a clock.
We're being timed?
Don't question me.
Your Honor, and esteemed members of the jury, I would like to let you know that today I bring before you the case that Ladyhawke is truly an awful movie for many reasons, but first and foremost because there is no reason it should be a feature-length movie. This movie could be accomplished in 15 minutes and still have the same effect as it does in full length. We have...
Are you charging the film with overstaying its welcome and prattling on too long and taking...
Objection! Leading the counsel.
Overruled. And allowing it to just sort of sit in scenes for, say, upwards of, 20 minutes sometimes where nothing is accomplished? Is that what you're saying?
That, along with the inability to complete a cohesive narrative, ever. Those are my charges.
All right, please proceed. Is that it? Are those your only charges?
Those are my only charges, because I don't feel that I need to do more than those charges to talk about how bad this movie is. There are plenty of supporting arguments, but those are enough to really nail home that this movie is a bad movie.
I'm sorry, the bailiff is handing me a note right now. And the note says that you forgot to charge this movie with the crime of having an outrageous soundtrack that is infuriating to the point of mockery, where we have 80s sitcom style music playing over this fantasy setting. So
you
good
see
thing the
that
bailiff was here to...
That plays into the length of time that the movie goes on that it doesn't need to, because most of that's so that we can hear the soundtrack that doesn't need to be there.
All right. The defense. Opening arguments, please.
Well, is this thing on? Okay. All right. I would like to say that Ladyhawke is a good movie, actually, and it suffers from some major deficiencies. And I will give the prosecution, I will toss a laurel your way that there is some inconsistencies and incongruencies with the soundtrack. It doesn't quite fit the time period. Sometimes the soundtrack is laughable. I will totally acknowledge that. But like many movies that have laughable soundtracks, it can still be a good movie. And even the soundtrack itself it has really high moments that were really, really orchestral and well done. As to the prosecution's claim that this movie could be done in 15 minutes, I would like to offer up that Matthew Broderick's comedic timing alone, even if you just removed him from this movie, and tried to make a supercut, that would be longer than 15 minutes. So just the comedic value alone would be longer than 15 minutes. That's not even counting the love story that happens between award-winning actors Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer, along with the best villain in the world, the wolf catcher, played by Alfred Molina. You are denying some of the world's best actors, one of their greatest performances here.
Excuse me, counsel, can you repeat those names again?
Rutger Hauer, Alfred Molina.
That's the one. Can you say Rutger Hauer one more time?
Rutger Hauer.
Okay, just making sure.
I said, why? What did you think you heard?
You sounded drunk. Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer.
Hauer.
It is
Isn't it
difficult to
Hauer?
say his name
Hauer.
and sound 100% sober, but I swear I have not had anything to drink within the last, let's move on.
Just making sure. I would also...
That's perfectly acceptable because I'm pretty sure that Rutger Hauer was drunk for this movie.
I think you could argue that he's a little too stoic, not that he looks like he's like falling down and over emotional. Like there are times where I wish you got a little bit more emotion out of him than what you got. But I think that plays into the good characterization of him. And part of the reason why it takes so long to get to the end, because you have to see this transformation from a rough, revenge-driven, angry, mean man that doesn't care who he steps on at the beginning and then transforms into a caring, trusting friend, companion, partner, and a man that is willing to sacrifice himself and his revenge for a chance of living in love with the woman that he wants to be with.
Oh, wait, I thought we were watching Ladyhawke. We were watching a different movie entirely?
I mean, maybe if you missed these parts, but I can't be blamed if you were...
I didn't miss these parts. I did not miss these parts.
Well, they clearly are in the text.
Exist.
They're not only in the text, but
are.
there's subtext too. So it's a well-done movie.
I will remind the defense that while, yes, Matthew Broderick's jokes total probably more than 15 minutes throughout the movie, that they are delivered with such awful ineptitude and lack of comedic timing and over several different accents through the course of the movie that perhaps that point is moot, as they should be excised completely.
One might argue that a switching of accents could be both in character and also an out-of-character piece of satire.
One could argue that, but one could be wrong.
Well, one could argue that also that my toilet is a great place to have a meal at, but...
I mean, if that's where you'd like to eat, Your Honor, that is up to you, but there's no accounting for taste, apparently.
One could seriously argue that is a choice of his character and that he's made that choice consciously. However, that argument is lost when the accent changes take place only in his thoughts that are verbalized as narration for the movie.
Well, if we're going to talk about accents, then I would ask you, what accent would have made you happy? Because most people watching this would have been fine as long as there was some variation on a British accent, even though this clearly takes place in France. So,
Italy. It takes place in Italy, Your Honor.
Most of these characters, to find the kind of characters that were willing to do French accents, and if they were going that heavy into the period piece, then they would have had to completely change the cast. Because I don't think that you would have found that Rutger Hauer, as you pronounce it, would be able to pull off a very good French accent. And I think that the fact that they just completely got rid of the necessary accents and just went, we're going to let our characters play within their
randomly
own strengths
choose accents when they feel.
And you know what? The only character that really jumps around in accents is Matthew Broderick, and his character being a liar and a thief and a manipulator. Yeah, it makes sense that he probably switches accents around.
Right, because the rest
where
of
is
them...
he really from?
Where did you say this was taking place? France? Because
I would believe, Navarre,
It actually
France.
takes place in Italy, Your Honor.
Is it? I don't know. Navarre. And it seems like there's a lot of French names. Isabeau, Navarre.
There are a lot of French names. I did actually do the research to check. It does take place in Italy.
the defense just said, does it?
Well, it's where you say where it definitely takes place. That's kind of a misnomer anyways, because this is not a real story. This is a fiction. I'm not sure if the prosecution is aware of this, but this is a work of fiction.
Anyway, my point being that...
And Navarre is in
Anyway,
the north part of France.
Excuse me, counsel.
He is from Navarre. That is not...
I will
where
have
the-
order in
it
this
takes place-
courtroom. Silence. Silence. Just pointing out that since it did take place in France, why did the rest of them just not even try with accents like Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer? just spoke with
Pfeiffer.
Oh, thank you for correcting me.
You're welcome. If you need help with any other pronunciation words, you let me know, Your Honor. I'll be happy to help you out.
They just spoke with common American accents.
Yes. That's why I said they completely removed accents from the movie. You could argue that that's an artistic choice that you disagree with. That's fine. I say that it just took that whole thing out of the equation so you could just pay attention to the characters.
Your Honor, I would like to enter a piece of evidence from the film's Wikipedia.
Okay, I will hear it.
If I may.
I'll allow it.
That it takes place in medieval Italy. That Philippe Gaston, a thief known as Mouse, escapes from the Bishop of Aquila's dungeons before execution. Aquila is in Italy.
Hey, speaking of escaping from the dungeon, we should also point out the fact that he's like pushing himself through like mud, and I assume that this is the city's sewer. I believe it's even said as much that it's the sewer.
Yes.
And then he falls into pristine, clean water and exits the sewer with his bright white, unsullied clothing.
Oh, they're a little bit off-white.
But not from
I would
being
like
in
to
the
say
water.
that
Yes,
the note I took at that moment was that Fezzik met Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, you could say that he came out of the water not quite as dirty as he should have. So if your argument is that Ladyhawke is a bad movie partly because they didn't smear shit all over Matthew Broderick, then I guess that's an argument you could make.
Oh, he did a fine job of smearing shit all over himself by participating in this movie.
And one more point: if anybody looks at you have Philippe. You think about the phrase you just said before we went to that point. Philippe Gaston is in Navarre, and this is in Italy. Okay, let's just move on from that. Philippe Gaston, a very famously known Italian name.
I believe the prosecution
He
has
make it a
something
name.
to say.
I believe that the defendant has not heard of the word traveling prior to today.
Everybody has a French name. Everybody in the story has a French name.
The Wikipedia itself, the movie itself, says it is set in Italy. Thank you very much.
Don't use Wikipedia as your source. Find the source that Wikipedia uses and use that and see where they find this from. Because this is just a fictional story, and everybody is clearly named something French.
Yeah, man. Do your own research.
Well, he is the Bishop of Aquila, right? Are we all in agreement that the bishop is the Bishop of Aquila, correct?
I certainly am. Yes, that sounds correct to me.
And the filming location was in Aquila, Abruzzo, Italy.
Sure. And this is all based off of the when they tried to connect it to a legend, even though it's not really a legend.
Right.
The only one that they could possibly equate it to was Francois Villon. So, yes, there's a lot of this is French.
It has French names, yes, but it is set in Italy. But also, I would like to borrow from the defense's own line last time that one point alone is just the beginning of the myriad of problems in this movie that make it, in whole, an awful movie.
Wait, is this an homage to me? I love this. Are you about to bring a body of evidence?
I don't have a body of evidence, but I do have 6 pages.
See, I will tell you my defense strategy. This is my attorneys have told me this is the worst news that I could do. I've decided to represent myself, and I'm going with a vibe-based defense strategy.
Very cool.
So I think this will work out pretty well, guys. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If movies are based on vibes, then every movie that ever has existed exists as a great vibe in somebody's life.
Absolutely.
I will allow that movies, certain movies do, that vibe is an element to the enjoyment of a movie and its quality. So that is not the entirety of what makes a movie good or bad, but I will allow that it is an aspect of one's ability to enjoy a movie.
And that's part of what makes this movie a classic to me, and part of what makes it a good movie is the fact that these characters are really comfortable and familiar to me, even though they all have problems. Nobody's really perfect. And you don't get much time to spend with these characters. They never made a sequel, obviously. There's no prequel stories. This is just the only time that this story exists. So some of the scenes, even though they may feel a little bit meandering, it feels like it works because we don't get much time with these characters at all to begin with. So I don't know. I'm happy There were times where I looked at it when we watched it and I was thinking 2 hours. Okay, that is a little bit longer than I was planning on. But once they got started, I'm like, I'm glad for each of these scenes when they're changing in the barn, when they're out hunting and they run across the wolf catcher and stuff like that. Like those scenes may feel like they drag a little bit, but it's all we get with Philippe Gaston and Navarre and Isabeau.
Now, I'm just a humble, unbiased judge, but I do have questions. My first question for the defense is, in the movie, when Matthew Broderick, who plays the character Mouse, is pushing through the mud to escape his cell via sewer duct.
Didn't you already ask this question?
No, I did not. Please wait until
Okay,
the
go ahead.
judge is done speaking before interrupting.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll try to.
He says, "This is not unlike escaping mother's womb. God, what a memory." While he's pushing himself through a tunnel of mud. What did he mean by this, do you think?
He's proclaiming two things at once that cause it to be simultaneously funny in my mind. One, it's a double entendre, basically, where he says, "Oh God, what a memory!" Speaking that is a horrible memory, imagining him coming out of his mother's womb. But also, it could be understood that he's saying, "Oh God, what a memory!" The fact that I can remember that far back, and for me to remember something that unfortunate. But it also it draws to mind the image of him crawling through this tiny little hole and squeezing out that makes you think of the birth of a human being, which one would argue that it could be the birth of this character's new life when he turned a new leaf, because this is where he enters into the world of Navarre and Isabeau.
I'm concerned where the mud comes into play.
That's what the earth, the top layer of the earth, is largely made out of.
Right, but
I'm not sure what the question is.
I don't know. It seems kind of gross. Like maybe.
Are you implying that he came out of her butt?
That's what it made it seem like. That's kind of. I was trying to dance around it a little bit, but I guess you put it out there on the table. So yeah, is Matthew Broderick in this movie some kind of butt baby?
I mean, if that's your headcanon, I am not here to dissuade you, but I will say that
Sustained.
the
Moving
subtext.
on. Please continue.
Hey, I'm just answering charges here. I have nothing else to add to it. I think even the fact that we could have this conversation shows how entertaining even the first line in the fucking movie was.
Let's hear some more from the defense. I mean the sorry, I didn't want to.
From the offense?
Yeah, from the offense.
Sports ball wins again. So we also see that he is trying to escape from these elite guards that put this man in power. These elite guards that are told he's in the sewers, and yet look everywhere but the sewers for him. So we are to believe that this elite guard is amazing at their job and simultaneously unable to follow simple directions.
I'd like to answer that.
And this is just the start of their ineptitude.
When are we ever shown that they are amazing at their jobs?
Well, they put this
You're
man...
saying we're supposed to believe that they suck and that they're amazing at their jobs. And I'm like, who said that they're amazing? They do, but like...
In general,
of
when
course,
you have...
if you ask anybody, they're amazing at their job.
When you are taking over a country as an evildoer, you have to have an army that helps keep you in power as an evildoer. Because otherwise, you just get overthrown. These are the people that keep the good at bay. And they are completely
If you're
inept.
arguing that the bad guys in this story are evil and stupid, I would agree with you.
I'll allow that.
Every bad guy in pretty much every movie of this caliber is evil.
Speaking of bad
And
guys,
stupid.
the Bishop is a bad take on Emperor Palpatine. The way he talks and the way he speaks.
I
Is
think
a
he,
dead
Even the way
ringer.
he carries
does he
himself.
predate? Does he predate?
No, this
Emperor?
was 1985.
And Emperor Palpatine, the first time that we saw him actually moving on screen was Return of the Jedi in 87, right?
Return of the Jedi was 83, sir.
Oh, okay. I have my years wrong. So, yeah. I mean, you could say that any old white man in a position of power could be seen as the evil villain in a lot of these stories. I think that he has more... I think he illustrates more a pope than he does anything like that. And he definitely hits on the hypocrisy and the problem with the church is, having this man of quote unquote like absolute authority in this area, when he's clearly an immoral, lecherous man that is using his power of authority or position of authority to try to take advantage of women and doing bad things to the men in their lives and stuff like that.
Right,
I don't
and then
know,
he
I think
says,
he's-
and then he says in a voice just like this, "See that it is done."
So, like, the fact that he takes advantage of women, or attempts to take advantage of women, and he curses them through the power of God and Satan, and he wreaks havoc on the men in their lives to try to get revenge, like saying things like, "No man shall have you." I can see where you'd completely draw the comparison with Emperor Palpatine. Emperor Palpatine, the known horn dog, went around trying to fuck everybody's wife, and when they wouldn't let him, then he would just, send them off to war.
Technically,
Just like Judge Turpin from Sweeney Todd, these are all the same character, pretty much.
not to bring up an old wound, but Rise of Skywalker does prove that the Emperor fucks.
Hey, we're not here to relitigate that case, sir. I think I think the public has already made their feelings on that case known.
Yes, they have, with a billion-dollar box office.
Back to other
Well, in that
lovely
case,
problems.
J.K. Rowling is right too, and we don't want to go there.
No, let's not go down that road, sir. I'll have you be respectful in my courtroom.
Of whom?
Not of J.K. Rowling.
Okay, just to clarify.
Of everybody but J.K. Rowling.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, everybody
She
but
deserves
the
no
turfs. No turfs. There's a no turf zone. Anyways.
All right. Continue. Let's
Wow,
get this show on the road.
I'm just answering the charges, Your Honor. I'm going with the vibe, and the vibe is feeling pretty cool so far. So lay it on me, dudes and dudettes.
Let's just discuss the other issues that we found in the opening scene alone. Moving out of the poop scene, we have Mr. Rhyming telling everybody where he is with a rhyme. We have the
He's clearly mentally unstable. He's going through a lot of trauma.
So poets are mentally unstable?
No, that man. No, you're associating the other way around. Not all beagles are dogs, but all dogs are beagles. No, wait, the other way. Not everybody that rhymes is going through some kind of mental distress, but some people that are going through mental distress may choose to express themselves in very, what we would see as creative and eccentric ways.
Noted.
And he's in prison, so, I mean, he's probably not doing too hot.
So now we have, if you're in prison and rhyme, then you probably are having mental battles.
I mean, if you're in prison, you are probably at a higher chance of going through trauma. Yes, I think that's why I feel comfortable saying that. And if that's the case nowadays, in the year whatever, insert current year here, then I'm sure it was the case 500 years ago or whenever the hell this movie is, fictionally taking place.
But then we have the fact that good old Mouse is stationed in the sewer directly underneath the cathedrals that are built to amplify voices, known for echoing, known for the fact that a whisper in the very back can be heard by everybody. And he screams from the sewer, and nobody even reacts to the scream. Nobody hears him scream through the sewer grate into the cathedral.
Well, when they were doing the acoustics for the sanctuary, they didn't take the back part of the sewer into account. They didn't.
If he was
that's
back
not
in the
spot
sewer,
that's-
that'd be one thing. His mouth was to
Surely-
the grate.
Surely counsel has evidence to back up the claim that he has just made.
Which one?
You.
That the people that created the sanctuary of the church were not planning on amplifying noise from the sewers.
Yes.
I would have common sense to claim to that. I think the jury can make their own call on that, whether or not the people that made the church were planning on people from the sewers being audible in the rest of the area.
I don't like it, but I will allow
And
it.
if you're talking about where they step on his fingers or whatever, they do look down because they do hear something, but they probably don't think much of it because they're singing coming from the church they're in. Mm-hmm. And when they look down, they don't see anything. It would be implied that it's lighter inside the church and darker inside the sewer. So when he's falling and falling back into the water, they might hear something, but above ground they're hearing and all that stuff going on. So like I could see them thinking about it a minute going, what was that noise? Oh well, it's gone now. I think at one point they even say, what was that? It was just the rats or something, but that might be the later scene when they come back.
That's the
I get
later
too
scene
confused.
that they involve the rats.
Yeah.
Wow, doesn't even know his own movie.
No, I don't have it memorized. No. But I will tell you that even just going off the vibes, I did guess it right.
Why do you do this?
Order in the court.
And then we move on to the moment where he is found, where Mouse is found in the bar, and a fight ensues.
A terribly choreographed and shot fight, I will
Yes.
add.
A fight where almost every swing of the blade is done off screen, and it just shows you the reaction face of the person swinging the blade. You might catch a little hint of a blade on the corner of the screen, but really, it's just faces.
I will say the action was still better than Psycho. They didn't just like pose with a dagger next to their face, looking at the camera.
Are we going to compare movies? Are we going to compare movies 50
Sir,
years later?
Psycho is not on trial here. I will have you refrain from.
And thank goodness for you that it's not. It would be a dark day in this court if it were.
And then we have where
I don't appreciate your hostility, sir.
Good old Navarre walks up and slaps the sword out of his hand. Like, just not with the sword, not with his crossbow that he uses like a sword half the movie, but with his hand. He walks up and just slaps the guy's sword out of his hand.
Oh, his crossbow that he shoots, and then he shoots again without cocking or reloading?
Right.
Because it has two bows. If you look at it, it's got like a double decker. Yes, the fact that he shoots 2 arrows or 2 bolts often, that's part of the bow. You really should pay attention to the movie.
I'm sorry, it's really hard to pay attention to a movie that's actively putting me to sleep.
I get it. I mean, paying attention is hard for some people. I understand.
We don't see him shoot the crossbow very often. I think I counted there were 2 scenes where he actually shot the crossbow. You see bolts being shot at people, and you see him holding a crossbow. And then you also see him smacking people upside the head with the crossbow like it's a sword. Much more often than you see him shoot the crossbow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, crossbows are pretty heavy duty. Like, okay, so I'll throw you this: that if you were going to criticize the crossbows, this is one of those like blaming Obama for a fake moon landing when you could just blame him for bad policy.
Actually, sir,
Actually,
sir, I blamed the entire fight scene.
No,
I blame the entire fight.
If you're going to criticize the crossbows in particular, criticizing how many bolts he shoots that's a lesson in futility because it means you just weren't paying attention. But if you were, and him hitting somebody with a crossbow, that doesn't make any sense either because crossbows were actually really heavy duty and made of really solid wood. So that you really could criticize this movie for is the fact that it was way too easy to cock those crossbows considering how thick that wood was. It wouldn't have been easy for a single person, even a very in-shape man, to pull back the rope as quickly as they do. And when they
Very true, sir. Point prosecution.
Yeah, but that takes away the points that they were making earlier, like about the whole, the crossbow shooting twice. Like, what does that matter? Like, it has two things to shoot. So.
That wasn't, first of all, that was not the prosecution's point of the 2 bolts.
Wait, are we doing the scoreboard again? Because I don't remember anybody pointing to the scoreboard plus or minus yet. So
I'm pointing at it right now.
Jesus Christ, I really should open my eyes in court more often.
Open your eyes. Open your eyes.
I have the worst fucking attorneys.
You are the attorney, sir.
I know.
But let's get back to the fact that we are talking about an action scene, the first big action scene of the movie, and you don't see the action for the most part. You see faces. When you do see action, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm going to slap a sword out of your hands, and then I'm going to smack you upside the head and knock you unconscious. Like,
and I just really dig that vibe. I feel it. It felt fun to me.
I'm sure a lot of people said the same thing of all the action scenes in The Last Jedi.
But that movie is not on trial here, right?
That
Objection, Your Honor.
We need to. I will sustain this one. We need to refrain from comparing this movie to superior movies.
I'm bringing up case law of The People versus The Return of the Jedi. Established case law is very admissible in court.
I'll allow it.
Oh, kangaroo court indeed.
But then we get to the point of, like, the first time that Mouse and Navarre decide to bed down for the night. And Navarre rightly tells him to stay away from him. Not together. No, not together.
You're making it sound dirty. It's not like...
He tells him to stay away from him. He tells him to take care of his horse. All well and good. And then he runs into a woman in the woods while taking care of the horse. And then he almost gets killed, and a wolf comes out and attacks the person trying to kill him. And he runs back to the
doesn't see
barn.
the woman. No, he doesn't see the woman until he comes back. He runs back to the barn because he hears the wolf.
All right, so
He goes out to gather wood. He hears crackling in the woods, and he thinks that it might be like a highwayman or something like that. So he starts pretending like he's a group of people as he runs back.
Yes.
See, I even remember this off of memory.
See, I don't, because I've only seen this movie
And
once.
that's when he runs into the woman, because he runs in and he sees the woman, and he warns the woman not to go out there because there's a wolf. And she says, I know, and she walks out there very knowingly. And that's when we're introduced to the idea that she is not afraid of the wolf, that the wolf is her friend or companion or something along those lines.
I would like to point out that night.
A great scene. I love the fact. Thank you for bringing it up, because this is a great
Oh,
scene.
is it a great scene? Because I
It
would like
is
to
not.
point out
Oh, yeah.
with big, giant, I don't know if you can see them, possibly you can hear them, finger quotes of nighttime, where it's just as
through the
well
whole
lit
movie.
as the whole day, except it's blue.
That's just movie magic. That's just movie magic. They have to like put a blue hint on everything to blue tint on everything to make it look like it's night. But yeah, they have to. That was just a reality of filming in the '80s with the situation that they were in. And some would say that it was a stylistic choice that worked really well, because I think it's beautiful.
I think I know a lot of 80s movies that actually shoot scenes at night and don't cop out with the day for night switcheroo with a blue filter.
Well, then you don't agree with the artistic choice, but I tell you what, I really enjoyed the vibe of it.
Let me rein this back to where I was actually going with this. So you have Mouse, who has known Navarre for half a day at this point, and Navarre disappears into the night. He doesn't know where he is. This woman appears and then disappears into the night with the wolf. And we are left to believe that good old Mouse sits there awake, because they tell him the next morning that he needs to get some sleep. He sits there awake with the horse all night in a barn where somebody just tried to murder him, and just chills there till the next morning, where somehow the guy he's been supposed to be looking for all night appears, and he has no questions, and he has no qualms.
No. Oh,
And
okay.
he
So
doesn't
you're
even stay
getting
around.
the scene.
He stays
You're getting
around.
the scene like half right. You're getting the scene half right in a bunch of ways. One, like, he wasn't killed. Nobody. The wolf didn't try to kill him, nor did the woman try to kill him.
No, the farmer did.
tried to kill
Yes.
him. The farmer tried to kill him, and the wolf and
Protected
the
him.
woman saved him.
Yes.
So
And then they
he
fucked
stuck
off
around.
into
Now,
the
they say
woods.
hold on. I'm sorry. Go ahead. If you weren't done making your point, go ahead. I'll let me know when I can go.
And then they fucked off into the woods, and he stays back at the farm with the horse and the murderous farmer's wife, who for all he knows is also a murderer.
That's not true. That's not what happened.
Where did he go?
Like
We
you
don't know.
imply that they fucked off into the woods. Yeah, you don't know. You're inventing this situation where she ran off into the woods with the wolf.
The last we
and
saw
he
them,
stayed behind
the
and took care of the
wolf
horse.
and the
We don't
woman
know. Yeah,
walk
exactly.
away.
The last we saw them, they're just walking. They're walking like 10 feet away from the fucking barn. When you're saying like walk away, yeah, they might have walked from 10 feet away to 11 feet away. But I mean,
So you admit that they walked away.
And that he didn't talk to them because he has questions.
yes, but they're not. Nothing there implies that they went off into the woods all night long and
He
left
has
him
questions
alone.
for Navarre in the morning.
That is implied at all.
It is
And
implied.
also, so like, okay, so let me retell that scene from a different point of view. But so you have Mouse is almost killed by the farmer, and it's a real quick betrayal. He doesn't see it coming. The wolf jumps into the scene, and even though he thinks that the wolf has been stalking him this entire time, we find out that the wolf is looking over him and stalking the farmer, who has been actually thinking about killing them to take their money. So the wolf just saved his life, and he realizes that the wolf and the woman are not an enemy, that they're actually, in this one instance, they actually saved his life, or at least the wolf did, and it looks like the woman knows the wolf. Maybe she's the wolf's owner or whatever. He's in the middle of the woods. He's got an enemy army, or, the cops, basically. The medieval cops are looking for him. So, and he's got a bed there. So he stays there for the night. And he probably doesn't sleep real well because he's probably freaked the fuck out, because not only is he dealing with being an escaped convict and all that shit, but somebody tried to kill him, and a magical wolf that jumped out of nowhere and killed the man and left him alone, and is befriending this woman that came out of fucking nowhere. And the only solid, somewhat knight type guy that he knows is just fucking disappeared at the same time. So yeah, he's probably freaking out a little bit. So he probably didn't sleep real well. That's why the next day, even though he's clinging on to these people because they're the only sense of like security that he can possibly find right now, the other character looks at him and says, "You should probably get some sleep because you look tired," or something along those lines, implying that yeah, he did sleep some, but he didn't sleep much. But all
I
of
would
his
like to
motivations
point
seem
out
clear as day. to
what
me.
is up with the wife of the woodsman there, who is seemingly played by Curly from the Three Stooges.
Oh, she's so wonderful.
All she does, she's a series of like.
Oh my god, I love her. The more I watch this movie, the more I enjoy her. She just makes noises. She doesn't. It's like one of those where they pay an actor if they have a spoken line in the movie, and they're like, and she's like, "Can I talk?" And they're like, "No, you can't say."
Can I do
She's
my
like,
Curly
"Come on, let me
impression?"
talk." And they're like, "No, you cannot say a single fucking word." No, but they didn't give her any. And she just went out there was she's just doing moans and grunts and everything that doesn't constitute as a word, because then they're not kicking her off, kind of thing. But she's wonderful. She's so over the top. And like the farmer is like, he's not that great. I don't like the way he delivers his line, but he just completely gets balanced out by the fact that she is wonderful.
Also, I will point out that Matthew Broderick loses his accent for the first time upon seeing Michelle Pfeiffer.
Well, there you go. There you go. So maybe his accent was him putting on airs, and then the first time he saw Michelle Pfeiffer, he was shocked by how beautiful she was, and he reverted to his natural accent. See, thank you.
Putting on airs.
Thank you for pointing out that point that really illustrates
wait,
how
did we
well
just-
put together this movie
conjecture? Is that conjecture? Is that less?
No, it was
conjecture than
it was the judge's conjecture. If Your Honor would like to make more conjecture like that, that's fine.
Actually,
we can entertain that.
Your Honor just said this is what happened, and you said because of this, which would be conjecture.
I was
Your Honor stated
expanding
this
on the
fact.
judge's conjecture, I would say.
Conjecture.
Sustained. The defense's conjecture is removed from the record.
Well, the jury already heard it, so I mean, you can instruct them not to listen, but they already heard it, Your Honor. So, haha.
There's no one here but us, you crazy man.
No, can't you hear them?
Oh yes, you're right. Correct.
I thought I heard them chanting my name, but I mean,
You didn't. It was Jared Goff's.
They certainly weren't.
I'm getting good vibes from them.
They were saying drool, drool.
Rule. Oh,
Actually,
right.
what he heard was the woman going.
All right, what's your next point, counsel?
They were saying smelly, smelly.
Smelly.
They were looking at you.
I'm like, I showered this week, I swear.
So we're back to the bishop, and they tell him that Navarro's back, and you see the instant registry of shock on his face. Like, how absolutely
Yeah.
he's not back.
He's like, oh, shit.
There's no way he's back. But then, in the very next moment, says that God told him that Navarro was back in a dream last night. And he knew he was back. So, which is it?
Yeah, so you're implying, you're inferring from his look of shock that he is saying he couldn't be back. He never says that. You just see shock. So the shock that you're seeing is basically he had the dream that Navarre came back, and he probably woke up and was like, just a stupid dream. And then he finds out that Navarre is back, and that's the look of shock that you're getting on his face. Again, thank you for pointing out. As far as I'm concerned, that's good storytelling.
So what you're saying is that the bishop who worked with God to enact this curse is then shocked that God is talking to him.
No, shocked that his dream actually came true exactly right, because not every dream can be interpreted as a message from God.
He
I'm sure.
specifically
He probably,
says
a lot of his life has to deal with wading through. Some dreams are messages from God, and some dreams are not.
Let the prosecution make their point. What was that?
his specific line is, God told me that Navarre was back. Not, I had a dream that Navarre was back, and now I know it was God speaking to me. God told me Navarre was back.
And then you were confused about the look of shock on his face afterwards.
Yes, because either you knew he was back.
So you're saying
Or you're
a
shocked
man in the
that he's
bishop's
back.
position cannot doubt God at all. There's no way that he would ever
Not
doubt
when he
God.
worked with.
I don't see what you're.
Not when he worked with him to install a curse.
Even if you told me that to borrow something from an earlier podcast, that Drew Barrymore was going to come on our podcast today, and then we're doing the podcast and she shows up, I'm still probably going to be a little shocked because I wasn't expecting to see her. And even if you told me,
Well, especially if I told you that, because it's not like I know.
but
Drew.
either way, Even if Drew Barrymore's agent.
But if I was Drew Barrymore's manager or agent and
I
said,
would still be a
"Hey,
little
I'm
shocked when it
booking
actually happened.
Drew Barrymore on your concert."
Yep, I would still be a little bit shocked.
So you're suggesting this bishop that has confirmed the existence of God and says God has talked to me and spent his whole life in service to this God. It's just every time he happens to talk to him, he's like, a little shocked reaction, and he's like, oh, you're still there.
I think it's much more Occam's razor than that, too. I think that this bishop uses the existence of God and manipulates the word of God to get his point across to a lot of people. So even when he says, God spoke to me in a dream last night, I don't believe that he literally had a fucking sit-down conversation like Tony Soprano at fucking Satriali's with God in his dream last night. I think that he uses God spoke to me and told me blank all the time. I think that's whenever he's like, I need to explain something to the people underneath me and I need to get what I want to happen. How he does that is saying, God spoke to me last night and he told me that you should take off all your clothes or whatever the fuck this creepo priest wants to do with his time. So I think him saying, God spoke to me last night in a dream and he told me Navarre returned. I couldn't believe it was true, or whatever he says. Why are you taking the evil bishop that you're comparing to Palpatine at his face value and thinking there's no way that this man could possibly lie to the people around him? I don't know.
It's poor acting, and it's poorly written. That's why. Because it should be either incredibly clear that he is lying through his teeth, because
it's bad. He shouldn't manipulate people like that, and that's bad.
But we could have set him up with, instead of the incredibly lengthy scenes of exposition of them walking across a plane to music that doesn't fit the scene at all, we could have actually built some characterization, and we could have had a knowledge that this bishop was very clearly manipulative and actually interacted with people in a manipulative way. But no, we spent time walking through fields with music that belongs in a sitcom and doesn't.
See, I don't know. To me, the movie. Hold on. Let me respond to her point. The movie did explain that to me in the very scene you're talking about. As soon as he says, God spoke to me last night and told me blah, 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 blah. I read that as, oh, this guy's full of shit and he's using God to get his way. Or like invoking the name of God to get his way. So like when you're saying, why didn't we have a scene to do that? And I'm like, that's the scene you're talking about. And then you're saying, why does he look shocked when Navarre actually returns? Because he didn't believe his own bullshit.
Conjecture.
Yeah, because he didn't. Well, I mean, that's art. That means that this art was effective because you read it one way and went, "Wow, that doesn't make any sense." And I read it another way that makes absolute fucking sense. And you could read it a couple different ways, and they all make sense.
All right, counsel. Point has been made. I would like to point out as to the many scenes of overland travel. I believe around this time, the one
landscapes.
Yeah, vistas.
That was vistas. We've had a running theme in movie night for the 4 years we've been doing so many movies that it would just be, okay, we spent a good 20% of this movie just looking at fucking vistas and landscapes. Like, I'm so tired of looking at landscapes. And yes, this movie is guilty of it.
But thankfully those movies did not go from the 80s sitcom soundtrack to the orchestral soundtrack within the same scene, perplexingly and mind-breakingly.
But see, okay, so let me pose it this way. Some could say that it would feel good to pound your head against a brick wall because it feels really good when you stop. And that's the way I look at those orchestral moments, because the music is so bad at times that when it switches to orchestral, it's like your brain is like, oh, thank God, it's normal music for a moment. Thank you. And then all of a sudden the disco drums come in or whatever the fuck they end up doing on top of it. Like,
Your Honor, I would like to point out that my opposing counsel has just said that you definitely need a break from this movie so that you can think that something is good.
Already noted and submitted to the record.
Your Honor, you're a big fan of horror movies, right?
I am.
Yeah, okay. I'll let that point, I hope that point stands on its own, because if you can watch horrible gore scenes and stuff like that, then part of the allure is that those moments when it stops, or the moment when it's that the fact that you're uncomfortable during that moment is intentional sometimes.
I'm sorry.
I'm not arguing that's the case with Ladyhawke, but just being uncomfortable during a movie isn't necessarily a bad thing.
And that would be my rebuttal, is that we're not watching a horror movie, we're watching high fantasy.
Hey, anything can be a horror movie if you're scared enough.
Also, I wasn't listening to a thing the defense just said. Let's move along to further in the film because there are many more bad examples of...
That is not a good vibe, Your Honor. Objection. Harsh vibes.
overruled.
Damn. Even harsher vibes. All right, what's your next point?
I love that this woman just keeps appearing, and Mouse just is like, okay, yeah, she just keeps appearing. Nope, no, not a thought in the head.
Hey, when Hot Girl appears, you don't question. You just say hello. You try to be charming. You put on clean clothes, whatever you got.
There's just not even a
The next time she appears
like
is when she's been shot, right?
Yes. She's shot.
I will say
What's that?
when she gets shot by the arrow and is brought to the monk.
Isn't that heart-wrenching? Like, oh, that's so heart-wrenching.
No, I'm sorry. That isn't the first time that isn't the next time she comes back. The next time she comes back is actually a scene that I
That was
thought...
when he's tied up.
Yes, because
He's tied up against the tree,
Yeah.
and then she comes back and she unties him and then
Right.
says, oh, he's going to kill me afterwards. Again, a little bit more comic relief.
because I thought it was a flashback. And then I realized that no, this is a straightforward
They
telling.
just met. They met for the first time. How would
Yeah.
you think that the next time you see these two characters together, it's a flashback?
Because there was no narration that linked the two together. There was no cohesiveness to the story.
It made total sense to me, but all right.
Like he's walking along with Navarre, and then next thing he's tied up, and this woman's talking to him.
No, he goes from saying, I don't want to go with you now that I know your quest. Navarre threatens him physically, and then he goes, okay, I guess I'm going with you then. And then the next thing we see is him tied up and her running around, and he's like, oh, the bishop's guards must have done this. And she can tell he's obviously lying, but she doesn't know what lie he's actually telling, so she lets him out because she thinks that he's her friend and he saved her, or no, he didn't save her life yet, but they're kind of friends, yada yada. She lets him out, and then he immediately runs away. And then the very next scene we see with Navarre, he is talking to the hawk and he says, let's go find the mouse, or let's go find Philippe again, because now they got to go track him down again. Because he feels he can't get into the castle without Philippe.
It was confusing and
Yes.
disjointed.
Yeah.
Most of this movie is confusing and disjointed.
I guess if you had difficulty with it, then I guess then that's the vibe that you're going with, is that the Ladyhawke is too complex for you. I understand.
It's disjointed. The vibe is disjointed. It's
Yes,
disjointed.
sure.
And the
It might
music
come across
helps that
distorted
vibe
if you're
along.
having difficulty.
Yes, I would say disjointed is a good thing to describe it, where the music and what's going on screen doesn't gel, and random. There was a random shot of one of the guards like hauling ass through the woods for like 3 seconds, and then we're back to Mouse and Rutger Hauer, and then it switches back and the guard finishes his trip to the castle. Like, what the hell was that? Why did we cut away from that for no reason?
Disjointed
it's just baffles the mind sometimes.
I want to see what you're talking about, so I'm going to pull it up and look, because that doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
I forget where it was, but I believe it's a little before this time that we're talking about.
The bishop.
Yeah,
It's a little.
it's when
He goes to talk to the bishop. It's before
right
that.
to show the guard like hauling ass through the woods. Then it cuts back to them very weirdly.
Okay, so
and
I'm
then it
watching
cuts
right
back-
now. So there's a scene where it's in the blue and she lets him loose. She cuts him free. The very next scene is let's go find Philippe, and it establishes Navarre is now looking for Philippe. Now we cut to Philippe, and he is captured by the bad guards, and the bad guards question him, and that's when the hawk brings word back to Navarre where Mouse is. So now we see a picture of Navarre closing in on the encampment where the troops are. And then we have the combat with the two-pronged crossbow clearly displayed. I'm looking at it right now. Where there's a big fight, and that's where So I don't know anything of what you're talking about. That's
It's
not
right
that
before he
scene
goes
at
to the
all.
bishop.
We go through the
No,
whole...
He's running
it's
to the bishop,
right
and
before
then
he
the
goes
bishop,
to the
he
bishop.
says Navarre is back. It's the scene that leads to that.
So
Yeah.
hold on, let me scrub forward then. So this is much after... When who goes to the bishop? And you say when he...
The guard after the
lead
first
guard.
fight with Navarre.
And then
I
they
believe.
call for the wolf.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you're talking about much earlier than where I'm at. You're talking about before the inn.
Yes.
Okay, I'm watching it right now. So Navarre is running into Blah, 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 blah. We see the guard at the gates. The guard's at the gate, and the horse jumps over the gate and scares the guards away. Oh, and then he bonks the guard on the head with his gauntlet. We see 2 guards that get stopped by the gate, and they are knocked off their path by the hawk flying between them and scaring one of them off of his horse.
Yes, also ridiculous.
A hawk flying at your face might knock you off a horse.
Your armored face.
He was not armored. He had a helmet on his head, but he didn't have armor on his face. That looks like the hawk was going after his face.
Helmet is armor, sir.
It's not on his face. He did not have armor on his face. That's the question you asked, and that's not what happened. So now we're at the inn.
There were 2 of them, and they both are dismounted by a hawk flying at them. In between the 2 of them.
You're moving the goalpost now. This isn't even what you were talking about.
You brought it up. I had to.
We're at the inn.
rebut
I
it.
still have not seen the moment that you're talking about. So
You're gonna see it. He's hauling ass across the land. And
yeah,
it's like
okay. So it's after the end and I love this scene because it showed that he's trying to ride back and let him know about the return of Navarre. And it shows that he's riding back so hard that he is beating his horses into a frenzy and switching horses halfway along the way. So he doesn't have to slow down for the horses. He's going full speed the whole way because he knows what a big deal this is. We as the audience are supposed to be looking at this going, why is this such a big deal to that guard? Is it because of Mouse or is it because of Navarre? And we find out when he gets there, it's because of Navarre, and that's where you see the shock on his face.
I posit.
Well, we may supposed to be doing that.
These are all points tied together. I don't know. They all make sense to me.
We may supposed to be doing that, but what we were doing instead was like, wait, what a sec. Why did they show that scene for 3 seconds? Oh, we're back to the guard traveling.
Yeah.
I
understand if this movie was a little too complicated.
I don't think it was too complicated.
I
think that you have seen the whole movie multiple times and have pieced together the disjointedness in your mind into a more cohesive story. Whereas somebody who's watching it for the first time is like, why are we doing this? Why did we cut here? Why did we move here? Why did we cut here?
That's a strong point that the prosecution is making right now. The first time viewer.
But from the first time, I've never been confused by this movie. I've never walked out of this movie going, I wonder why they did that, and I wonder why they did that.
I'm not confused. I'm saying they were horrible choices, and they make the narrative disjointed and unfair.
So, okay, were you confused or were you not? Because if you weren't confused, that means that the scenes worked and did what they needed to do. If you were confused, then we had a different viewing experience, because they didn't confuse me ever.
I didn't think he was going to the bishop. I didn't think he was running to the bishop. I thought he was still chasing Mouse.
No, he was running away. He ran away from Navarre. Like the last time we saw him was when he was getting chased away by he ran away. So I don't know.
You know what? I'm confused. I'm confused as to why this whole movie we've had nothing but MIDI soundtrack.
Hey, there are some real drums in there.
Saturday morning sitcom soundtrack.
I knew the moment I walked into this, I was going to deflate that whole argument saying, I don't care. That yes, the music sucks. There are moments of the music's really cool, but most of the soundtrack is stupid as fuck.
For a slow chase up a spiral staircase in the monastery, they bring out the orchestration.
And there are other moments too, like a lot of the love scenes and stuff like that. That the orchestration really comes through.
It boggles the mind.
And in those scenes, I will agree that this movie falls into it could have been so much better if they just leaned into it a little bit more. And they brought it, even just switching a soundtrack to a traditional orchestral soundtrack would have pumped this movie into A category. As it is right now, it's sitting in a B.
Sir, I agree it would have been much, much better because every time that we're looking at the vistas, taking in the vistas, I'm just reminded when the stupid MIDI music comes in that, I'm watching a movie that was filmed in the 80s. I'm no longer transported away to a whimsical adventure. I'm sitting in my desk in the dark.
And did you know that for Conan the Barbarian, they considered doing a soundtrack similar to this.
And they rightfully chose not to.
Thankfully, someone on that production had some sense, yes.
Oh, I'm right there with you. And that just shows that if they just would have just tweaked it just a little bit and had a little bit better soundtrack, it could be argued that the storyline of this movie is better than the storyline of Conan the Barbarian. I think this story has more nuance. None of the characters are
That's a very
extremely
low
like
bar.
overly powerful in any one way. I think the storyline of this movie is actually, I think it might actually be better than Conan the Barbarian. But Conan the Barbarian has more stylic choices that keep it consistent.
That's a very low bar.
Let's talk about the transformation
Yes.
scenes.
Oh, well, hey, it's the 80s, man. What are you going to do? They didn't have
I don't know.
CGI.
There's a little movie called An American Werewolf in London that has a remarkable practical effects transformation scene of a man into a dog-like creature that is...
Would you consider that movie like one of the best examples of its time?
I would, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying that this movie didn't do as well as one of the best examples at a very specific niche technology? I would agree.
Yes.
That they
I would
utilized
agree that
repeatedly
this movie
through
was
the
not
movie.
the absolute best at special effects.
I wasn't even going to hit on the special effects. Because
Well, that
I
is
don't
a
even
point
think we
for
need
the
to hit on
prosecution.
special effects. Because the acting in this movie is a little flat. In fact, the best actor in this movie is Imperious. The only person that I felt really had a stake in the game was Imperious.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I love his voice. He sounds like an Elder Scrolls NPC.
Yeah.
Like, straight up. He straight up sounds like an Elder Scrolls NPC.
And I will...
Yeah. Imperious is one of the most one of the best acted characters in the show. I will agree with you on that. But I mean,
Yes, which is...
And we don't meet him till halfway through the movie.
And his good acting in the movie is a giant spotlight on the poor performance of his
Yes,
surrounding
exactly.
so
fellows.
you're saying that Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer both acted poorly in this movie?
Yes.
Michelle Pfeiffer may be a little bit stronger than Rutger Hauer. And Rutger Hauer, he's great. I mean, he's kind of like one of those things where he's just him and you enjoy it. So I don't know that I want to fault his acting as much, but certainly Matthew Broderick and to a lesser extent Michelle Pfeiffer and just some real rough line delivery.
I will fault Rutger Hauer as well. He took the role. There could have been a lot more feeling. I didn't buy the love story. I don't to this moment feel that they had any feeling with each other. I didn't get any chemistry. Now, granted, they don't get a lot of screen time together, which we could have fixed by having less vistas and more flashbacks to when they were together, so we could get a love story, so we could get some connection between them and see some chemistry.
That's not what this movie wasn't doing. Wasn't exposition through flashbacks. It was letting you see their current day and hearing the story, and basically you're living the perspectives of their past, of looking through the eyes of the priest that betrayed them. And I think that's wonderful. Like, yeah, maybe in a different era they would have made this movie with a lot of flashbacks and CGI and stuff like that. But I think the fact that it's one of those necessity created really cool art. And I think them using that sympathetic character, the drunk monk, to tell the story and make him seem like the villain, where he thinks he's the villain, and he is kind of the villain at some point, and that's why he's trying to redeem himself. That again is one of the many layers of this story that makes it so good, because no character in this story is a good person. I mean, Isabeau is kind of innocent of any wrongdoing, but like everybody else, like Rutger Hauer, like, yeah, you could say that Navarre, he went through... I don't know why you laugh every time. Rutger Hauer. That's how you say his name.
Rutger Hauer.
Hauer. It's Hauer. It's not Hauer.
Rutger Hauer.
It's Rutger Hauer. No.
No.
It's not like root
no,
beer.
It's Rutger Hauer.
Har. It's Har. Anyways, Navarre, like, he starts off really gruff and mean and kind of like an asshole, and by the end of the movie, he seems much more endearing and like. Is there a huge difference? No. Like, the whole movie takes place over the course of a couple of weeks, maybe a month, something like that. So you don't see a huge change in the person, but you see that he's looking at life differently and he's got a different perspective. Whereas before, he was ready for him and his love to die to enact revenge.
So you're saying the movie is show, don't tell.
No, he's saying the movie is tell, don't show.
I think that there's a little bit of both that I think you see in the mannerisms of the characters and their actions that they have changed, but I think that the exposition worked pretty well as a tell, using the vehicle of the monk to be the one to tell them.
And then...
So yeah, we become immediately connected to the monk, and we feel compassion towards the monk. That's great, because that pole vaults this character that, like you said, only comes through a third of the way into the movie or something. It pole vaults him into like one of the favored roles already, because we already feel that he's vulnerable, but he's funny and he's trying to be better. Everybody loves that redemption arc. Somebody that fucked up, but they're vulnerable and they're trying to become a better person. He's the first person that admits to doing that in the movie. So of course you glom onto him because you're supposed to. And then the other characters kind of follow his lead, showing that the redemption started with him and it started long before the movie even began.
I would like to point out that I think the scene that best exemplifies the romance between these two characters is when they briefly see each other for a moment at the I believe it's daybreak, and
in the hole, because
yes.
The curse doesn't take effect until the sun hits her or the moon hits him.
Yes, and so he is laying there, I believe, naked in the snow after just having transformed from a dog, and sees her and looks into her face, which is just a transformation, is a sustained close-up of her eyes with terribly frightening contacts, and then he screams into the snow.
Yeah, he screams frustration.
Yeah, and probably a little horror too.
Because and the priest even says earlier on, two dumb creatures that live a half life, unaware that the other half doesn't exist, and except for that brief moment where sunrise or sunset happens, where they can almost touch. This is something they've gone through dozens and maybe hundreds of times. This isn't the first time he's seen her. That's why he screams out in pain, is because he knows how this works. He's almost going to be able to touch her, but not fucking quite, and he's screaming at the fucking moon. And they put him in that position because they knew that he would need that bump to remind him why you're fighting for what you're fighting for. Don't go for vengeance. She's still alive.
It's called edging.
You just had to fit some kind of bestiality reference into this episode, didn't you? I know it.
Oh, that's right. Your Honor. This is another pick of yours that revolves around.
They're not all mine. They're not all mine.
Another pick of yours.
You did the Muppet
another
movie.
Pick of yours
you did the
that
Muppet
revolves
movie.
around interspecies erotica.
Interspecies erotica.
Wait a second.
Well, I was on the waiting list, and then this movie came in, so I figured.
I still want to get back to how edging is part of bestiality.
That's his thing, man.
It's one of those beagle versus dog situations. not every instance of bestiality involves edging, but wait, no. Yeah, never mind.
Let's complete that part.
Can you picture that?
No, let's not get on another list. Let's move on with you both telling me how dumb the movie is. That sounds much more enjoyable than the other way.
So let's push forward a little more. There's too many bad things to talk about, and we'll be here all night. When they return,
it's the middle of the day, Your Honor. We're in court, but it's the middle of day.
I said we'll be here all night.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were confused.
Like we'll just keep going through the night.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sustained.
Yes.
What does this kingdom eat? Crystal Pepsi? Because whenever he's going through the sewer, the water is just like beautifully clean, and we see it again when he goes back and utilizes the sewer as his plan to get into the church.
It's just chlorine. It's just chlorine. That's part of what made the Renaissance so cool, was that they started chlorinating the water.
Also, are we to believe that he actually did have that sword on him the whole time after he pulls it out of his shirt at the end to throw?
Again.
Let's take a small recess and I'll rewatch the scene then, and I'll tell you for sure what happened.
Because
it's going to take a few minutes.
While he's fighting with him, that's when he has oh no, the bell has rung. So that means Imperius is killing Isabeau. Mm-hmm. So he was not at the church.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see it right now. So Mouse, this is clearly shown on the screen, so this is just another example where some people weren't watching the movie, even though they were going to try to critique it.
It's almost like it's a bad movie and it's hard to hold your attention or something.
Right,
oh, yeah.
right.
If you don't have the attention span, then it must be the movie's fault. Yeah.
It is, because I have a good attention span for other movies.
So Mouse opens the door. He runs out the door and goes to the wagon, and they clearly see him go to the wagon, climb underneath the wagon, grab the sword, and go, "Oh, thank God," or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he has a sigh of relief because the sword is still there. And then he runs back to the castle. The whole while, Navarre is fighting Marquet with his little shit sword, and that's when Mouse runs in and throws the sword to him.
Okay, we'll strike that one from the record then. But I also want to point out how absolutely hilarious it is that when Navarre is about to leave to go confront the bishop at the church, and he's talking to the friar. What's his name again? Imperius?
Oh yeah, Imperius.
He's talking to Imperius, and he's like, "If you hear the church bell ring, kill her, make it painless. But as soon as he says kill her, the hawk starts going.
It's totally her going, screw that. I am my own person. You don't get to make choices for me, mister. I don't want to die.
No, don't kill me.
He loves her so much, he's going to kill her.
Don't tase me, bro. And then the earlier scene where Mouse is like, "Can you hear me? Can you understand me, Ladyhawke?" yes, I can fuck it. What do you want? One caw for yes, two caws for no?
Yeah, it's very funny to me that he's like, kill her, make it peaceful. It's like, no, don't listen.
Yep.
He loves her so much that he's going to kill her.
All right, so what's your next point?
How about the most awkward horse trot through a church I've ever seen?
Right? The super prancy horse.
Isn't that like a canter or something?
No, it's a prance.
It's supposed to be a canter or whatever.
But it's a prance.
It's for show. Yeah.
It's bad. It's poorly executed. It's like a bad one.
Why? What's wrong with it?
It's a bad example of it.
It's not because it's not.
It's like herky jerky.
Threatening.
Yeah. Like, why did he do that?
I thought it was supposed to be that way.
It's not.
Yeah, see, okay, well, I'm a city boy, so I don't know much about equestrian arts, but as far as I've seen people doing this at county fairs and stuff, and it looks the same when they do it, so...
Yes, but
I don't
they're
know.
doing
It didn't strike me as all that odd, but...
It's not something you would do to threaten.
If watching the horse prancing is not prancing up to your equestrian levels is a reason why this movie is not good for you, then cool. It didn't pass your vibe check.
Well, it isn't up to my horse prancing levels, okay?
It is.
All right. Well, then that's I will let you stand on that mountain alone, sir. You are the prancing
That
king.
would very much be what you would expect to see a horse doing in an exhibition, not in a "I'm coming to kill you" kind of way.
Yes, it's a strange choice.
Well, that's the whole point. Yeah, the whole point is that he's like showing off. He's preening in front of the bishop's inner sanctum. He's not only made it into your inner sanctum, but he's preening as he's walking up to your fucking dais. He's about to kill you, and he's going to do it with style.
It looks like I'm about to come change your clothes.
He's not hiding. The whole point is I'm not hiding. If he had a trumpet, he would play a trumpet too.
It comes across as I'm about to come and zhuzh up your life.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, he is there to fuck up the bishop's
Here
day.
to deliver your potpourri, sir.
Oh, here's your beautiful delivery of tapestries.
Yeah, it should be noted that in medieval combat, there was often quite a bit of pageantry and pomp before these combats would happen.
Oh, so now the movie is going to be historically accurate.
No, it's a fiction set in a time, historical fiction. It has been that way along. And I will have you know that, too, the reception of this movie noted that the historical accuracy was actually really well done. Like the costuming, the sets and everything, the way that they denoted different class systems and the way they spoke of people. There were a lot of things that were very, very well done, especially the costuming.
The music.
So, the music was not. Oh, yeah, you're not going to hear me argue that. You can keep coming back to it. That's fine. Like I said, the accents would not have been good unless they were pure French anyways. If we watch Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, we would be watching him speak in Old English, and it wouldn't sound like fucking English to us. So there's a certain amount of suspension of disbelief that is implied that you as the audience are going to... When you go to watch a musical on stage, people don't just pause and sing about what they want. You suspend your disbelief enough to go, okay, this person is doing something a little bit differently. So, like the accent thing, I can easily look past that. That doesn't bother me. The music, that's a little bit harder. I get you on that. But.
And then there was the New York Times, which called the film divided against itself and went on to say that scenes of high adventure or visual splendor are spliced between other scenes with dialogue of a banality that recalls the famous Tony Curtis line, "Yonder lies my father's castle."
Yeah. Well, I mean, some might take it like Matthew Broderick's character would be largely the most anachronistic character because of the wisecracks. But how do you... comedy wouldn't translate one-to-one. If you're telling jokes that they would have told during the Renaissance or pre-Renaissance days or whatever, they would be telling the same jokes that people would find funny today. That's part of the reason why they brought Matthew Broderick on, is they needed somebody that they wanted to lighten it up. And, of course, he's going to use contemporary humor. Even his jokes are largely 80s type humor. So, I mean, you could argue that, yes, that's not period correct, the style of jokes that he made. But even then, like most of the time, they're easily looked past. They're easy for me to suspend my disbelief and take the joke for what it's worth. And when Matthew Broderick makes a joke about hot lamb, it makes me chuckle. Like, yeah, if I were freezing in the middle of a fucking snowstorm, I might be thinking about a really hot meal that I had the Christmas prior or something.
But they're delivered with all the effect of like a failing stand-up comedian.
But I want to get back to the suspension of disbelief for a second. I really do, because
All right, let's do that.
part of the thing to do, part of what helps with suspension of disbelief is consistency in that suspension. So the moment that something takes you out of that, the bad music, the bad jokes, the accent,
Missing accents. Yeah.
accents that appear and disappear, it makes it that much harder to continue the suspension of disbelief.
Okay, I'm going to, again, object to the point that accents appear and disappear. The only character that has been noted that changes their accent throughout the show is the one that we have denoted as a liar and a manipulator, so it makes sense that he would change his accent all the time. Everybody else keeps their accent consistent.
Because a lot of the time he's narrating. Again, I want to go back to the fact that he is narrating, so this is the voice in his head talking to himself in different accents. It doesn't make sense.
I appreciate your chutzpah there, Kelly, but no, that's not it.
It's never bothered me at all. So again, if it didn't vibe with you, that's cool, man. There are other movies that probably be more up your alley.
I love this defense. Actually, I will point out that hey, man, that's cool.
You can go ahead and be mad if you want, but it's just a movie, man.
All right. Does the prosecution? Are there any more points that you would like to make before we call an end to procedure?
The last thing, not to harp too much on the sound, but at the very end, where they're finally getting their true love's kiss, and she grabs his shirt, and there's crunching. It sounds like somebody's eating pretzels in the Foley. What is with that? Like what is his shirt covered in poop and it crusted? And so then,
if you call out these moments like this, I have to like pause so that I can watch these very specific moments to hear what you're talking about.
I'm not kidding when I say that moment, I literally was like, "What is going on?"
Why is his shirt crunchy?
Yes. And it's that there's the sound.
I'm watching it right now.
The Foley that they're using for that scene doesn't match the scene at all.
It's leather. The sound you're hearing is leather.
No, it's crunching.
Like leather.
It
sounds just like leather to me.
No.
Yeah. Wash your leather. Bro.
I will splice I will splice the sound effect in here so everybody can listen to it, but it's just sounds like her grabbing something that's coated in leather and the bending and the creaking that would happen when somebody stands up that's wearing a bunch of leather.
It's louder than everything else around it. Like it is distracting.
I can barely hear it over the music.
It is distracting.
What type of music is playing?
The romantic orchestral.
Oh, finally! So they did have an orchestra, and they just chose not to use it for 45% of the movie. 60% of the movie.
Oh yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna argue that point at all. This movie would have gone from a B to an A minus, or maybe even more, if it changed the soundtrack to a full orchestral. It would have gone from
a D to maybe a B. But the acting is still atrocious.
So you would give a movie that has horrible acting a B? Oh.
That's why they're called B movies, sir.
There's no accounting for taste.
Yeah.
Do we have closing arguments? I'll let the defense go first this time.
Oh, that would be me, huh?
Yep.
Well, hey, I understand a lot of the complaints that I'm hearing from your sides, mans, but like it just didn't bother me. The inconsistencies, they didn't seem inconsistent to me. The problems that y'all had following the plot of this 80s action movie, I didn't have those problems, and I didn't have them when I was younger, and I don't have them now. Maybe it was a time-sensitive thing where if you saw it and you were 10 years old and in 1980 something, then maybe it made more sense to me at 10 years old than it does to y'all at your ages. But I don't know. I didn't have the problems with it that y'all did. I thought that the romance story was wonderful. I thought that the premise of a man and a woman that are in love, but they can never see each other because one is one animal and the other is other animal, that was really cool. I thought the performances were good. I thought some of the action scenes were pretty good, but I didn't come here for the action scenes. I came here for the interplay in the story and the fact that each of these characters had a journey to go on from start to finish. Every single character in this narrative that we have like significant speaking lines from, they go through a major transformation from the beginning to the end. Some of them go from a transformation of being evil to dead and evil, but all the good guys, all the potential heroes that are lined up on the good guys' side, they all change a little bit as they go. Maybe not Isabeau because she's kind of presented pretty innocent and pretty cool to begin with, so she didn't have as much of a journey. But all the men, the three men especially, they had to go through a journey, and we saw them go through individual journeys. Some of them had to learn to be more honest. Some of them had to learn to be a little bit more open to different ideas. Some of them had to learn how to, be a better friend. And, I thought it was a good movie for the messages. I thought that the music sucks. I know the music is the worst part, and I knew when I picked this movie that I would be fighting an uphill battle against the music. So I'm just going to admit defeat on the music. And if you're the kind of person where if you can look past the music on this, then there's an amazing movie sitting underneath. If the music and the plot difficulties that some people may have are enough to pull you away from this, then sure, then this might not be the movie for you. Then there might be something out there that is a little bit more straightforward with its narrative that might not confuse you as much. So.
All right. Do you rest your defense?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say I can rest it for you if you'd like.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Now that the defense is done rambling on, prosecution closing our arguments, please.
Well, he said it himself.
Objection. Argumentative.
If you have
Overruled.
If you want a movie where the soundtrack is good and it's not disjointed and the acting is better than decent and people's accents don't make jarring points where you have to stop and figure out what's going on, and you don't want to sit there and look at vistas for an hour out of a 2-hour movie.
Hey, that's all the 80s movies.
Then this is not the movie for you. And it's not a movie for anybody. Michelle Pfeiffer is not good in this movie. The love story is not...
I object. That's sacrilege.
Is not. The love story is not well told.
She's pretty, but she leaves something to be desired in the acting and storytelling.
Wow, that is so sexist. Go ahead.
The best actor is somebody that's introduced halfway through the movie, and his great performance makes everybody else look that much more wooden. And it's just not a good movie for all the points that were laid out by everybody. But if you want to go and vibe on a movie that you have to see 10 times to get the full grasp of, then maybe this is the movie for you.
I would like to say, too, that I am part gay, so that means criticizing one of my favorite movies is pretty much it's pretty much a hate crime.
And during Pride Month, too.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
But I'm also part gay, so...
Well, then we have to compare... We'll talk about that later. We'll figure out whose percentage of gay is higher. We'll have a competition out in the front lawn. In the backyard. I'm not a monster. We'll do it in the back.
All right. As the presiding judge, I am going to bring this case to a close. I will point out that I probably would have been fine with the movie were it not for the soundtrack, but the soundtrack just beats you to death with how fucking awful and just jarring it is. And it is I could hold this movie up as an example of how a soundtrack can make or break a movie. And now
absolutely,
we are not here to...
And the vibe of a movie.
And the vibe of a movie. It's certainly, if we're talking about vibes here, the vibe of the movie is in chaos because of this fucking rinky-dink soundtrack.
I would like to... Before we go, I have a couple little observations that didn't quite fit into our framing of the
I'm
court
sorry.
case,
I thought you rested your case, but please do continue.
I do rest my case, but these are just more like witty observations. They won't affect the case at all. The editor of this movie is Stuart Baird. Star Trek fans might remember him as the director of a couple of movies of Star Trek The Next Generation. He was famously had a huge feud with Patrick Stewart. So the editor of this movie does not get along with Captain Picard, and Captain Picard will not work with him, kind of thing. So I don't know what that says about the editor of this movie.
You found some way to talk about Star Trek.
Yeah, well,
amazing,
I have to. Every movie, it's just automatic. My brain just goes there. The other thing, I think that if the Witcher series was made in the 80s, Rutger Hauer would have been a great Geralt.
Ooh, I actually agree with that point. That's a good observation.
Yeah. So other than that, do we have anything else that we need to talk about before we go? Or are we just doing
the judge wasn't done yet. Please refrain from rushing the judge.
Oh, Jesus Christ. God, you talk a lot. I have never met anybody that talks as much as you do.
So we are not here to
kettle, pot.
dole out justice or judgment.
Yeah. I know.
This is in your hands, dear listener. You are the jury. And you shall decide.
The esteemed jury.
The esteemed jury. You will decide the fate of this movie and whether or not it is a good or bad movie. And the bailiff is handing me a note. Hang on, let's see what this says.
Objection.
All right, it looks like we're going to go straight to sentencing. And Kelly Gray, I sentence you to death for being mean to me during the Rise of Skywalker. Case closed.
I object. Where's the appeal? Where do I get the appeal court at? Is that
Hey, tell it to the judge, buddy.
Will it help my case if I say that they can find us on Ko-Fi and we now have a Discord server available, and to like us on Facebook and to review us so that we get more reviews, because I don't know how many we got, but probably not that many, and come find us, and I will try to live through the sentencing, and I'll appeal. Don't worry. Let's stop the vote. Let's count the vote. I don't know what's the phrase that we use to rile up people. Let's storm the Capitol. What do we got to do? I don't know. Maybe that's not a good. I'm gonna get on another list, ain't I? I'm just gonna stop talking now.
All right, this has been Screen Share and Chill in defense of. I am Judge Keith.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jamie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladyhawke, more like Ladyhawke.